All right. We'll come back. I think we'll go to AU at the end. COVID had you on headlock. Dang, COVID still exists, bro. I haven't seen anybody around here get COVID anytime lately. Okay, so I believe Tuesday we were, the main thing I can recall was the fact that we were seeing EURUSD start to really begin to show signs of a potential, just turnaround. And that was around here on Tuesday where we were reading internal order flow. But from the overall perspective, the momentum was really just giving me a sign that we were going to start coming up. And unfortunately, we just never reached, right, that potential quote unquote hedge spot, considering we were still technically bearish, right? So here's the main reason kind of why I was leaning towards that bullish bias was, how we had pretty much determined that we had just taken out previous liquidity, a major point. So that's always a major, not red flag, but a sign to be aware. So once we have a sign to be aware, now we are essentially combining, right, the internal structure, which in here is a liquidity grab with momentum, and momentum to the downside being very, very weak. So that's pretty much what gave us the inclination at the time that we would at least be short-term bullish. And by short-term bullish, I kind of meant around here, because if you guys recall, this was our original POI, this right here. And this gave that reaction that we were looking for internally, but we just never gave anything after that. And by reaction, I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about this reaction, break of structure, but it failed, meaning the entry is okay, but unfortunately, right, the minor intraday was still in play and that did not break. So that is a bit unfortunate, and it did happen right around London. Yeah, it was around London, and the continuation would have been around New York. But yeah, a bit choppy. Personally, I wanted to, like we say, we want those bearish transitions and a bullish pullback for, your higher quote unquote trade idea, which is pretty much what happened today, right? Where we pretty much, right, it's super textbook from just looking at this from a perspective of order flow, structure, etc. So I'm going to delete this. I'm going to delete actually all of this. And let's see. So from the perspective, right, of trying to quote unquote play a liquidity grab model, excuse me, there's always has to be obviously a liquidity grab in play. So a big thing that I think has helped a lot of you guys has definitely been working with the continuation mindset over the reversal mindset. And by that I mean, right, analyzing an initial break of structure as a continuation BOS, right, and only thinking of reversal when it's, very, very specific. And by that I mean you have a clear break of structure, momentum, blah blah blah, etc. So when I'm looking at obviously continuation BOS, right, this morning we just had, right, an internal liquidity grab, as you can see here around 3 in the morning. 2 in the morning is when we confirmed our liquidity grab. And once our liquidity grab is in play, we now have a narrative in play. Why? Where is our original direction? It's bearish, right? But I don't want to consider this to be a full-on break of structure. 1, it was a quick move to the upside. 2, it was a quick move to the downside. So the momentum is giving me signs, right, that we aimed for something, got it, and pretty much returned. So when I'm looking at this now, and this is actually a cool little lesson too, this is the first time, well, not the first time, but whenever I do take limits, they're usually, the SL is usually always at the invalidation point. And that's usually the case for most of my limits. If I don't do smaller time frame analysis, it's usually going to be with the invalidation. And this was pretty much my continuation invalidation. From the continuation perspective, because this is where we had our final point of order flow before we melted down. So this morning, right, you could obviously see the parameter of the entry based on what the narrative has given us, which was the minor major intraday liquidity grab, the internal structural range, the internal premium, the invalidation, the point of reference, right? And that is obviously where we are seeing just around a 1-9, 1-8. But the cool thing is I don't necessarily care about the entry itself. I care about what how the entry has portrayed priced afterwards. And by that I mean, right, we have now taken out our first initial target. What does that mean? That solidifies the bias, right? And that pretty much gives me a reason to hold. So not only that, but we're being supported by higher time frame bearishness, dollar bullishness, right? Because if we look at DXY and EU, when you see a liquidity grab on EU, you actually see a mitigation on DXY, and that is actually here. All right, I believe that's the same spot unless I'm mistaken. 21st, 315, 315. Yeah, so this was exactly right here, right? How this was a mitigation, whereas this was a liquidity grab. So how do you technically play this? I'm sorry, up here, right? Well, you wait for the narrative to show itself, and that's why I'm saying that the LG is not confirmed until the preliminary structure is broken. That's what initiates the continuation, right? And I don't necessarily, right, want to assume up here unless this breaks. And if this breaks, I would need my transition here, and that's what would then give me a higher probable scenario, because that's, you know, another form of catching a bearish transition. Whereas here I didn't necessarily catch the bearish transition, but I recognize the bearish transition for what it was and what it created, and that's what gives me a bias, right? At least from a continuation sense. Like I said, this would have been scenario one. If that failed, then I would need a transition here, right? Because that would pretty much solidify the low, and that would then lead to internal unwillingness, and you guys know how that goes. But yeah, super straightforward with EURUSD. Honestly, I didn't expect it to be super choppy this week, but it really looks like we can just, you know, give one big candle in one direction. That's really what it looks like and wants to set up as. Now, whether that will bounce off of somewhere, who knows? Like we said with DXY, the bias is, you know, we're pursuing points of liquidity. We've been looking at these for the past couple of weeks, and as of now, it looks like it does, you know, want to pursue that, especially with the size of these weekly candles. So I wouldn't expect nothing too bad up until probably around here. This is probably going to be the next quote-unquote pit stop, just because this is actually very significant in terms of this is the last time where we, you know, gave that COVID drop back in 2020, I believe. Yeah, back in 2020. So maybe we could get some type of reaction here, but who knows? Because the last time we had a scenario like this, you could see that it didn't really fully work out, but I'm not too how do you say this? I'm not too confident with the idea of order flow and then order flow because of, right, higher low, that's higher low. So we have a series, right, of higher lows, right? We obviously have currently we are internally bullish as well, so we would need something pretty big here if we really wanted to sell there. But who knows? We could get another type of COVID release, but that would be, you know, very, very unlikely. So as of now, this could be a pit stop, but I'm not too concerned with this, you know, changing the entire bias, right? It's just too early to say that. I don't have the data for that. And that brings us to AU. I'm sick. I did not trade this week. I'm sick. This is just as nice as it gets, but to be honest, right? Because we had pretty much called what the narrative had given us over the past, 2 weeks? April 5th, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, right? The narrative had already been dictated. So all we did, right, was analyze this as a turbulence point that we would eventually come back into, right? Whereas my invalidation for the entire bias would have been probably here. And as you can see, that's pretty much the type of move we got there. There was actually something I was looking at. I believe it was, I don't know if it was yesterday. I don't recall. I believe it was around somewhere around here. I unfortunately, like I said, I didn't trade this, but I was studying this afterwards. But I don't recall where I saw a potential entry here. Because you can obviously there's, you know, bullish structure in play, but once you see the liquidity grab, this is where you would ideally want to look for an entry. But that's only because up until here, we are technically on paper bullish. But yeah, I don't know. Did anybody here catch this? Did anybody here trade this? I know you guys were trading UCAD. I know you guys were trading a bit of GU. All right, EURUSD, actually Ricky caught this trade that we just discussed right now. So yeah, that's pretty nice. I did just close that too early. Why, man? Why? Look, let's actually look at this. Where is a potential target that we could be looking into? Yeah, man, we're looking. Bro, I don't think you guys understand. Like, this looks really, really bearish. Because what happened here? Look at this. What happened here? Just looking at raw price. So what happened here? This has to go. What happened here, right? A lot of people will call this, I don't know, enticing, I don't know, something, signs of bullishness, whatever, blah, blah, but we understand where our original direction is. So we had a continuation BOS, but that, right, was us trying to essentially look into moves that will, you know, give you a bearish transition and a bullish pullback for a bigger reward trade. So we got the continuation BOS, which led into a move to the downside, and that's exactly what's happening here too. With AU, right? And mind you, this move is not done yet. Right, continuation BOS, right, enticing buyers per se, so that you can then create a bearish move based on the original direction, which is based on the overall original direction. You see what I mean? So this could very well start reaching down here over time. Definitely, I would say here. That's a great TP place. And then after that, maybe you could get a recovery, and that's where you would get, you know, your second potential move. Because if you guys recall, I believe we caught this move at the beginning of the year, and that was that. But unfortunately, you know, that wasn't the full melt. But if you want to look at it from the perspective of structure, let me, if you want to look at this from the perspective of structure, we were, actually, I'm going to annotate. We were seeing this, right, obviously as a bearish transition on a bullish pullback, but high into low, high into low, high into low. This just solidifies, you know, essentially. Okay, I need to get a line there, I'm sorry. This will solidify, right, a potential bearish structural range, but the only issue is that we do have a bullish liquidity grab, meaning here the only way to be technically bearish on paper would be with a bearish transition, bearish continuations internally. All right, so it's cool because technically on paper now it's bearish, right? But it wasn't bearish. That's why the initial entries would have actually been high probable, because you're catching bullish transition, which your bullish transition, your bearish transition would have been inside of that box. So yeah, I definitely see this coming down. This is a POI, mind you, and then if we take that out, we could definitely start coming for previous liquidity, and that would be about 300 pips away, just about 300. But yeah, pretty nice move. But yeah, I mean, other than that, there's not really much to cover. The AU bias worked out as we, our bias worked out. The exact area wasn't, but you guys know that's why I don't really like to play POIs overall. I like to play the internal reactions, and I'll only ever use like a limit if it's internally. But yeah, the bias was definitely right. I mean, just good for the notes, right? But yeah, I mean, do you guys have any questions? Here's something cool too, maybe something you guys may not know. A way to find POIs is look at character shift, I'm sorry. Right, there is stalling in price, then we see a big move to the downside, and ironically that's where price comes back again. It's pretty interesting. This is like the things I saw when I was first coming up with SE rules. But does anybody have any questions? Makes sense, yeah. Yeah, I think it was a neat little trick back in the day. And GU gave a nice entry. I heard. Funny thing, my friend was trying to buy here. Let's actually look into this. Oh, okay, I see. So, are you talking about here? I'm sorry, are you talking about, actually, let me just do this. Are you talking about here? Because the narrative was dictated here, original direction, you've taken out previous structure. This is just, would be a continuation, I'm assuming?
Yeah, bro, there was a change of character like on my minor intraday, like 15 minutes. Around that area.
Oh, I see it. This morning? No, yesterday morning.
Yeah, so where your mouse was just at, that was a clean entry, but then after that, it gave like a scalp clean entry as well, like on 2.5, I believe got caught.
Oh, right here? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, after that push broke structure, then it pulled back to a POI. And
yeah, POI, break of structure, internal, wow. Rip. Yeah, that's super nice. That's a bag right there. GJ gave a nice entry too. Yeah, show me. But yeah, I do see that. I see the vision. I like it. I see the vision. But yeah, for some reason my friend was trying to buy here. Don't ask why. I mean, a good example. Let me see. All right, this is pretty much emphasizing what I just brought up earlier. I believe it was around here. All right, let me look at his chart. And you know, I don't like to bash on retail. I just like to bash on approach. And by that, I'll show you what I mean with that in a bit. Oh, right here. Yeah, cool. So it was liquidity grab. $30.39. So the setup was no idea what's oh, I'm sorry, I'm tripping. It was actually right here where pretty much we're seeing this, right? And then you see technically this, and the entry was here. So I'm not gonna bash on retail, I'm gonna bash on approach. Do you guys know what's wrong with this approach? Number one thing that's wrong with this approach, I mentioned it earlier. And I'll get back to, and then we'll get back to your stuff, Lisette. Number one thing, I'm looking for one word. Not structure. Well, kind of, sort of. Reversal mindset, thank you. This is the number one thing that I think is one of the number one things. Like, you can trade whatever you want, any method, any approach, any rules, but if you can't get the direction right, you're just not going to win a trade. That's just unfortunately how it is, right? Most of the losses that I take are just trying to reversal chase. And when you can change your approach to a more continuation bias, which would be my blue here, right? This mitigation based on previous structure means that anything, right, just like Don here, anything here is technically, right, your conservative entry, and that's why you get these massive results, right? And that's obviously, like I'm saying, it's not a bash, it's just focusing on the reversal will usually lead to a lot worse of win rate. You can argue the whole RR argument, but honestly at this point it's really all about winning your trades.
Yeah, bro. If you wanna go to NU real quick, that study that I showed, I think it was a week or two ago. Like crazy.
Wait, where exactly? I'm sorry.
Just the whole direction narrative, and there was a POI I was talking about 3 weeks ago about massive swings.
What, turbulence point?
Yeah, all the way up there, but yeah, that played out. It's playing out perfectly.
Yeah, you see, like, I think it's really important to just get your bias on first. If you can't get your bias right, it's gonna be really hard to win a trade. Because if you can get the direction right, you already really got 50% of the way done. Because now even a continuation BOS on a continuation trade, right, is much more probable than a continuation BOS trade on trying to catch a reversal, right? Because the best you'll get is maybe a pullback, or best case you'll get is a high trade, right? But, you know, most common case you'll probably get, you know, a pullback or just a break even or an SL. 3-day on NU.
Yeah, it was a 3-day POI.
Ah, I remember this. Yeah, I remember this. But yeah, you see, like 300 pips. Yeah, very nice. But yeah, let's actually get to Lisette's thing. Let me see, moving this. Okay, so if I'm reading this correctly, right, there is very important. That's very important. That creates your bias, right? Momentum, right? Very, very conservative continuation. That's how I'm reading it. But yeah, liquidity grab on liquidity grab. Yeah, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But it looks like there was a transition here that you could see right here. So I think we've talked about, I think it's been a couple of months since we've talked about this, how we really don't want to, for example, like downtrend, whatever, bullish transition, right? Whether that be a liquidity grab, a break of structure, whatever, right? How we usually see mitigation 1, mitigation 2, right? And then we'll wait for this, but it'll do something like that. And this is really just the indicator that there's strong order flow. So I wouldn't necessarily want this unless you would get a transition there too. And that's an ugly transition. I'm sorry about that. But I think we talked about this before, how initially, you know, strong order flow would be technically 2 to 3 mitigations, but it really just depends on the impulses after the mitigations that give you that type of sign, and how deep they retrace afterwards. But whereas in this scenario, right, the transition has occurred, the order flow is in play, this is just a minor recovery. And you see that very, very often. Of course, you'll sometimes also see that, right? But it really just depends on what pairs you're trading. Let's see. Okay, there we go. That looks a lot better. Nice. LG confirmed based on continuation POS. Yeah, pretty big SL, but good trade. See, personally, I would have put my SL no higher than there. Because in my opinion, if we break this, I don't think the entry is valid. Because then after this, you would then need the bearish transition, and then that's what you would have originally wanted to wait for. But yeah, it's a solid. Solid. Yeah, textbook. Yep, textbook. Very, very textbook. It's cool though, because for example, here on paper, you wouldn't want to move your SL until this is taken. But this is why I think it's also very important to just know where your invalidation is. Understand where your invalidation is, and it's either you're gonna get the trade the right direction, or you're just not, and you just got the direction wrong or the timing wrong. Could be either or. Yeah, hopefully you guys can't hear that. That's somewhere outside. But yeah, does anybody have any questions? Anything else they want to show? Cool, any more questions? Anybody? And these will be on the recording so you guys can see. But yeah, anybody? Nothing? Cool, yeah, it's been a good week. Good news. I should be wrapped up with school within the next like 3 weeks, I think. So yeah, should be done with school. Yeah, 2 to 3 weeks. Good news, I don't have, this is like my last big semester. That's why I really haven't been too engaging with the group. It's been super overwhelming over the past couple of weeks. And in the summer, like literally summer, I'm gonna take 2 courses, and then in the fall I'm gonna take 2 courses, and I'm done. So I'd actually start focusing on obviously being more interactive in the chat, blah blah blah. But yeah, the hard stuff is done. Like, I'm sorry that I haven't really been too like I said, too engaged with the group, but it should change within the next couple of weeks. But either way, if you guys need journal reviews or anything, you guys know that I get those done every week. I seclude time, I think around Mondays, in between Mondays and Wednesdays, to do that stuff. So yeah, if you guys have any journals, definitely send them over today. And unless you guys have any more questions, anything you guys want to discuss, then yeah. Well, uni, I go to UT Arlington, which is one of the UT schools in Dallas. Just finished your final as well. Nice. What kind of degree? Business administration. Nice. Any double majors? No. Nice. So what's your route? What's your plan? Where are you going from here? Since you just, you know, so I'm assuming you're going to graduate here in the next month. Doing 50 for basketball. That's the best, bro. You know what's so cool? You only have to take like 2 classes. You only have to be a half-time student because you were a full-time student this semester, I'm assuming. Yeah, so you get to take like 2 classes, chill. This is a great time for you, bro. Do you have any loans? Next year we'll have to. You see, so this is like the best time for you. Like for example, me, I have to really focus on trying to set myself up for the next like 5-6 years, the next half of this year. Just because I need to get, for example, I have a couple of loans around like 20K. So my plan for the next year or the next half year is to only be a half-time student, but I'll still get benefits and stuff, right? But really just focusing less on my school because I've really just done all the hard part already, and just really focusing for you. All right, my bad. This just disconnected. But what I was saying is, for example, now for you, I think it's really good for you to play basketball and really just, you know, focus on being self-employed. Really set yourself up, bro. Like something I'm really like, how do I say this? I want to drop something. Is really trying to focus on cash flows, bro. Cash flows, that's really what I'm focusing on over the next year. A lot can change in a year, bro. A lot can change in a month. A lot can change in a month, bro. A lot can change in a month, bro. You'd be surprised. But yeah, bro, this next half year has to be, it's going to be something cool. I mean, it's going to be the first time since we launched RCV that I've had this much free time. So we'll see. But yeah, does anybody have any questions? But yeah, that's cool. I didn't know you were college basketball. That's cool. No, bro. No. Like, no. Don't get me wrong. My trading hours are the same, but my engagement will probably be more engaged. Like, I rarely ever get in the chat in the mornings now. I usually won't check the chats until like 1-2 p.m. So but it'll just really, the main change I think with school being out is probably going to be my afternoons. Like for example, on a Monday or on a Wednesday, Wednesday are my worst days of the week. That's why I do calls on Tuesday, Friday. Oh yeah, probably, yeah. Yeah. We'll keep Tuesday as recording? What do you mean? What do you mean? Oh, yeah. I don't know. It just depends. But I mean, having 2 live Zooms, like it's not, I wouldn't say it's too beneficial. For example, out of everybody in the group here on a Friday, when is really the most available time for most people, we have 12 people on. So that way with my Tuesday recording, it's done within 20 minutes. And then this Friday one is when we can actually take some more time. So it just benefits me a lot more. And it helps me manage my time more. But yeah, other than that, I mean, you guys have a great weekend. Definitely send me journals in for the people that are sending me journals. A lot of them are looking good these days, so I look forward to seeing them. I actually do look forward to seeing them. But you guys have a great weekend.